Deuteronomy chapter 27 and 28. Blessing if they obeyed, and cursing if they disobeyed. Before we delve deep into the subject of blessing, let's try and unpack what we mean by generational blessing, or the term blessing. The term blessing carries two ideas. The first idea is a blessing was a public declaration of favored status with God. It's a public declaration that you are favored by God. So it's more than riches, although it includes riches. You have favor with God. You are highly favored with God. It's a declaration of favored status with God. God's approval, if you would. God's will, goodwill upon your life. So you're favored by God this morning. You have God's favor this morning. You have God's approval this morning. You are blessed. Hallelujah. That's the first idea of the term blessing. The second idea of the term blessing is endowed with power for prosperity and success. I thought there'd be more amens here. Endowed with power for prosperity and success. So there's a twin concept about blessing. One is God's approval, God's favor. You're God's favorite. Let me bring it home. Kids keep asking, Daddy, am I your favorite child? You're favored. And an American preacher has said, favor ain't fair. Favor ain't. It's true. Favored. That's the first aspect of blessing. But that favor is also associated with right standing with God. So you cannot divorce the two. You have a right standing with God. You have God's approval. Hallelujah. God smiles at you. You are His beloved child with whom He's well pleased. Hallelujah. You have God's favor upon your life. But also, secondly, endowed with power for prosperity and I can stop there and preach all day about that. You know, as a child of God, you've been endowed with power for prosperity and success. The Lord is with you. Hallelujah. The blessing of God is upon your life as His child. You are blessed. You are favored. God has favored you. It therefore means to be blessed meant having more than just riches, although it certainly does include riches. I have seen very rich people but very miserable people at the same time, without the favor of God, without God's approval. Chris Jobs, one of the wealthiest guy in the US, died in his deathbed. He was a very miserable person. He lamented about the vanity of life, chasing after the last dollar. How much is enough? And finally, he died miserable. You should watch what he said. I have no time to go into that. Miserable, very rich, but miserable. For without the favor of God, riches are just misery. They add more sorrow. They add more fears and anxieties. The fear of losing it, the lack of security. But the riches with the blessings of God, hallelujah, how becomes wealth, the favor of God. God has blessed humanity and intends that these blessings may flow to generations or through generations. God's blessing is intended for generations. But also quickly noted that the devil's desire is to break the flow of God's blessings. He desires to break through his antics by providing alternatives. You know, we are living in an age of inclusivity. God is exclusive. His commands are exclusive. But democracy and all the things we are hearing is saying, be more accommodative, be more inclusive. There must be alternative. What are the options? That's the challenge the devil posed to the first family in the garden. Did God really say? That's being narrow-minded. There are other options. God didn't exhaust what he wanted to tell you. There are options. In God's kingdom, there are no options. Can I say that slowly? Because that struck me so hard. We live in a places where we have options. When you're presented in a situation where there's no option, you feel boxed. You feel cornered. You kick. You complain. And you feel that your freedom has been infringed. We talk about human rights. Who is talking about human wrongs? There cannot be rights without wrongs. We never hear about human wrongs. God presents you with no alternative. If you choose against what God has presented to you, there are consequences. There are things in life that have no options. While we may choose to eat an apple or an orange or a mango, but in real life, there are senses in which there is no options. This is God's way of doing things. So the devil comes with alternatives. There must be options. Husband and wife get married. A man and a wife, no. There must be options. This is so restrictive. This is so prohibitive. Let's try a man and a man. John and Johnson. Or Eva and Evelyn. Options. There are things that God has said, if you do not choose this route, you're in trouble. There are consequences. If you walk this path, there are blessings. I will bless you above all the peoples of the earth. But if you choose alternative and the devil comes with a shopping bag of goodies, alternatives, options, and that leads to a snare.